And welcome to season 2, episode number 9 of the QCast. My name is Bob Quillman. I appreciate all of you that have been so supportive of this little venture of mine to talk to interesting people around Division III basketball and other realms for that matter. And I'm really excited today, really honored to have Justin Hardy joining me, the fine senior forward from Washington University in St. Louis. Justin, you're there in St. Louis, and you have a lot going on right now between basketball and school and everything. How's everything going for you?
Everything's good right now. Season's been off to a hot start. School is wrapping up here for the semester, so everything's as good as could be on paper.
And you guys are off to an awesome start, 8-1. I talked to Coach Yuckham just last week here on the QCast about kind of the start a little bit. I watched your first couple games. I watched the Millikin game, which your buddy Jack Nolan hit a buzzer beater, and then you lose at Webster, and then you've really kind of just turned it on. You've looked great since then. What was your take on just the progress, the progression of the season so far for the Bears?
Yeah, we had a little bit of a flip of the switch after that Webster game. Those first two, we kind of came out and, it showed that we hadn't, played against anyone besides ourselves in 2 years. And, we started off where we couldn't find any way to put the ball in the basket. Our defense wasn't terrible, but, we weren't locking teams down like we are right now. And, it just took a while to start to get things to click. And it's not that, we have the recipe figured out now or anything, even remotely close to that. But we've let our defense carry us, these past 5-6 games when we started rolling. I think we've held nearly every opponent under 60 points this year, which, is pretty tough to do the way teams are playing right now, so fast, getting shots up, early in the shot clocks. So we've just found the way to start clicking. And, it's nice when Jack Nolan can bail us out and win a big game for us when, we got our backs against the wall against Millikin. Like, we're never going to trade that. But it's also nice to have some comfortable wins like we've been having over the past few. So we're starting to get it together. We haven't played elite competition like I think we're going to be seeing in conference play yet, but we've beat some good teams, so we're where we want to be right now.
One of those comfortable wins, which was really impressive that it was comfortable, was Dubuque. And that's a game where you had 28 points and 11 rebounds. At the time that game was played, I think it was number 18 versus number 16. Dubuque's a good basketball team. That was a stretch in your season where you're kind of coming off that loss to Webster. I think you had already maybe beaten Webster the second time in there, but you go to that tournament in Memphis and you face a really good Dubuque team. You got to be thrilled with the way you and your teammates played against Dubuque.
Definitely. Yeah. Like, that was one game we had circled on our calendar saying, this was going to be one of our big non-conference games. Obviously, the La Plata tournament we play in, we see some good competition as well. We'll have a good test with Wesleyan, but the Dubuque game was kind of the first big one on our calendar. So we didn't know what we were going to get when we came out there. They were 2-2, I think, at the time, but we knew they were a good basketball team. They'd done some really good things before. And, one of their players, had some really crazy talent. And that was the beginning of us kind of seeing what we can do defensively to teams when, we pressure them and give them fits. Charlie Jacob and Dave Winley combined held that kid to, I think 14 points or something after he had been averaging, pretty high throughout. And, he had to get that on a lot of shots. And, seeing those two build their confidence defensively, they've been a really tough matchup for some of the best players that we've seen so far. So, it was a whole team effort defensively, just keying in on some of their really good players. And, from a personal standpoint, that was a fun game for me where I got hot from the 3-point line and every shot just seemed to be falling. So, got lucky. I banked one in early on, and just the confidence kept rolling. So it was nice to have, a game where I felt like I played up to my capabilities and, did a lot of good things out there on the offensive end.
Now that you're at 8-1 and you're officially through the Fontbonne game, and Coach Yuckham really wouldn't talk to me too much about the Illinois Wesleyan game, the game against my alma mater. But now that it's your next game, I think it's fair to say A lot of us have talked, and we always call WashU and Illinois Wesleyan the best non-conference rivalry in Division III basketball. What are your thoughts on getting ready here for another IWU WashU battle?
We know it's going to be a tough one. The two that I've gotten the chance to play in my freshman year, Brady Rose put on a incredible performance at our place, and they knocked us off. And then, 2 years ago, we went on the road and Jack scored what seemed like 20 straight points in the
He hit
second half.
every impossible shot that he took went in the basket, correct? Like just
I think
everything the kid shot went in, basically. It was one of those ridiculous performances I've ever seen. That was pretty incredible.
And it might have surprised you, but I don't think it surprised anyone within our group. We're used to seeing that frustrating days in practice where we're trying to get 3 stops in a row in one of our kill drills, and Jack comes out and just hits ridiculous shots over us when we're playing good defense to keep us in the drill. So that wasn't surprising, but it's always fun playing against the best of the best, and Wesleyan's going to be that that team, our first real test against some really, really great competition. And I think we all have been looking forward to this game, and we're not going to shy away from anything. I think we match up really well at all 5 positions. So while we're trying to figure out how we're going to guard them, how we're going to match up, they have to figure out how they're going to match up to us as well. We got a lot of threats.
I agree with that. Both teams match up really well. So there's a lot of teams that would have trouble with Illinois Wesleyan's size. You guys have 2 6'10" guys on the floor at all times.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Jack Nolan, you have you have the freshman Hayden Doyle. You have so much depth and talent. Both teams actually are very similar in a lot of ways. And, I guess we could just leave it at, it's going to be an awesome Division III basketball game on December 19th that we're all looking forward to, and certainly looking forward to just watching that one play out. The reason that we're here today, Justin, is you had reached out to me earlier this week after you saw the Coach Yuckham QCast. And in that interview, I asked Pat to talk about some things going on with you personally. And, I didn't feel comfortable getting in any detail because it's not my story to tell. And I think Coach Yuckham didn't feel incredibly comfortable, and he sort of left it general. And you sent me a note and you said, hey, if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. So first, before we go into details here, thank you for reaching out to me. And it sounds like you kind of want your story to be told. Like, is that the reason you reached out? Or I just thought that was incredibly cool you did that.
Yeah, I'd seen what Coach Yuckham had said about it, and he kind of left it, pretty open. Didn't want to go into any details, and I appreciate him kind of respecting my privacy in that regard. But I'm at the point where I'm pretty excited about what I'm doing, and I think it's cool, and a lot of people are telling me it's special. So let's let whoever wants to hear about it and embrace kind of what we have going on right now.
So let's do that. Let's get into some of this, and we'll just tee this up with everyone to say that Justin's dealing with some very serious health issues, which we're going to talk about and get into right now. So last year we have the season where there's no basketball at WashU. Season's canceled. You're going about your business there. I assume you were on campus in April of 2021, going to classes, being a student, dealing with the pandemic. Is it correct to say you were in St. Louis when all this stuff shook up, correct?
Yep, that's right.
So tell me first, before we get into kind of the diagnosis and everything, what if you could talk about it, what physical problems, what led you to say there's something wrong in my body and I need to go get it checked out? What was happening?
Yeah, so it was really a tale of 2 cities one day. It's this late spring here. It's late April. We are doing our basketball workouts, doing everything that we can in order to prep for the next season coming up, since we didn't get to play. So we're doing our lifts. We're going off campus to find places where we can get some pickup in, get some runs in. One day we're in the weight room, max out lifting, and the very next day, I wake up in the morning and I'm kind of feeling a little bit off. I'm having kind of some sharp stomach pains, and this was really the first of the noticeable health things to kind of shift. So I'm having a little bit of stomach pain. Didn't really think it was a big deal. So just kind of went on with my day. It got a little bit worse and worse. I was sitting through class, made it through, and I just decided, I need to lay down for a minute. Hopefully when I wake up, I kind of flip the switch, curb this. I've felt bad before in my life. This isn't anything new. So laid down, and when I woke up, I could barely get out of bed. I was in so much pain. I, crawled to the bathroom trying to, see if, that would alleviate any issues I was having. And I was just in so much pain, felt like I needed to get sick, and walked out of there and grabbed my roommate, Peyton Webb. And I was just like, hey man, like I need you to take me to urgent care. I don't know what's going on. I thought, I had, my appendix had burst or something
Right.
crazy. Like I knew where the pain was. I just didn't know what exactly was going on. So he rushed me to urgent care, and we started to see if we could get things checked out, but there was really no signs. Before that, I'd been having like a little bit of acid reflux before, and that had played into it a little bit, but nothing that was alarming at all.
So Peyton Webb, your teammate, takes you to urgent care, and talk us through then what happens at that point. So what happens? What are you told? Just talk us through that. What happens next?
Yeah, this was one of probably the craziest 24 hours of my life. Go to urgent care, and I'm in there, and I'm voicing that I think it's an appendix issue. And so, they get me in for a CT scan. They're hydrating me, trying to get me up to speed. And they get the results back as quick as possible from the CT. They're not seeing anything. They're asking a million questions, trying to consider what else they need to run. And they aren't seeing anything on this scan, so they're just telling me that I'm severely dehydrated, and there's not much they could do for me. So got sent home from urgent care, and so went back. I'm pretty miserable at this point, so I just lay down. Thankfully my sister is living in St. Louis, so she came over. She was checking in on me. It was a big help that night, and was laying down for a while, and ended up getting pretty sick, throwing up, not feeling well. So we raised that to the next level of concern, and so went into the hospital at that point, and was sitting in the ER getting checked out again. They're looking at the same things. They're doing ultrasound on my stomach. They're did another CT while I was there. They're drawing blood work to see if anything pops up, and again that night, nothing found that was alarming. So got sent home from the ER that night, and was just really in a lot of discomfort and pain. So had gone home that night and pretty much spent the whole night up in what escalated into the worst pain of my life. And we find out the next morning, went back into the hospital, and they discovered that I had a hole in my stomach. So I was leaking my stomach acid all throughout my abdomen, causing this really sharp shooting pain. And so I was up all night in what was really real tough time for me. So at that point, they had found this hole in there, and they wanted to rush me into emergency surgery at that point, and kind of get that hole checked out, which kind of leads into what they discovered at that point.
Yeah, and so they find this perforated ulcer in your stomach, and you go to surgery to basically repair that, and you wake up from surgery and are told what?
Yeah, told that they had found a mass in my stomach. So it was unsure what exactly it was at the time, but when the doctor looked at me and said, we found this mass, we're sending it in to pathology to see what exactly it is. It took 4 days for them to come back with the diagnosis that it was in fact cancer, but I knew right at that moment when they looked me in the eye and said, they found the mass, what it was going to end up being. They looked very confident in what they've seen, and I'm sure they've seen it before, but found that there, and it was just a long waiting game to know for sure that that's what it was going to be. But kind of knew at that point, my life was never going to be the same from when I entered that day.
So that you spend the 5 to 6 days in intensive care recovering from all this, and then the biopsy comes back, and they confirm to you that it is cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And to be specific, just talk us through, like, what did they tell you about the specific type of cancer it was, and what was the exact diagnosis that they gave you after it all came back?
Yeah, so it came back as stomach cancer, and this is something that's pretty rare in kids my age. This is something that we don't see super commonly in the United States. This is a disease that is a lot more present in Asia, and so stomach cancer in the U.S. isn't completely rare, but super rare for a 21-year-old to have. So cause at that point was really unknown. Kind of weird that I was having these issues at 21. Came back, we didn't know for sure at that point, stage wise where it was at. It was very clear that there was a lot of disease there, and later come to find out that it is stage 4 stomach cancer, which was definitely tough to hear, that it had begun to spread to other parts of my body, which we had no idea that this was even going on up till a couple of days before. So the idea that it had been in my system for quite some time, we don't know exactly how long that was, but it could have been in me for years leading up to when we had actually found out that this was a problem. So found out that after a couple of days of sitting and waiting, and was just tough news to hear. Everything that I thought my life was, started to look like it was going out the window. I questioned just about everything I was doing. Like, never thought I would play basketball again. Wasn't sure I was going to finish my degree, what I was going to do. With my summer internship I had, everything was up in the air. I didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, let alone down the line, and I still don't, but it definitely rocked my world.
Yeah, that's what I can't imagine, that moment where you're told that at your age, and the average age of stomach cancer is 68 years old. You're 21 years old, correct?
Yep.
And you have, what's amazing to me, Justin, is just talking to you, you have like this infectious smile and enthusiasm that everyone watching this is picking up on, and you're telling us about a diagnosis of stage 4 stomach cancer. At the moment that this all came out and you found this out, there had to have been some pretty dark moments there. But you mentioned kind of questioning your life, and to the point what we're going to talk through the steps that have happened since then. By the way, we'll get into that. But how difficult was it there for a while, and then just the journey to kind of get to this person that we're seeing now? That it's just pretty incredible. Just talk through that a little bit, like how dark that was and how you've managed to get yourself to this great place.
Yeah, it was dark for a little period. The hardest part about all of it was not knowing. There's a pretty big period between the initial shock and when I began treatment, and that was a lot of tests and meeting with doctors and not knowing what was going to come next, not knowing what treatment was really going to be like, how it was going to affect me, what I was going to be in for. So the unknown was what was most scary to me about it. And so we had a good month period there where that loomed over me, and it was the only thing I thought about. I couldn't go 5 minutes without thinking about this and what's going on and how it's shifted my life. Like, it was just consumed everything of my thought. It's a disease to my body, right? But it was also like this disease in my brain. I couldn't get it out of my head. So thankfully I had, a lot of people by my side trying to keep me as distracted as possible. I moved home from St. Louis back to Chicago at this point, but um, my family was really good about keeping me up as best as we can. And, a lot of our family friends from home and my friends from school were, checking in constantly, keeping me up as much as possible, and was able to take a little bit of a vacation there. I went down to the Bahamas with one of my teammates and some of our good friends, and just kind of cleared my mind and got ready for, what was going to come next with treatment. So it was finding ways to, put my mind as much elsewhere as possible. But yeah, it was dark for a little period. But once I kind of knew what I was getting into, things got a lot better at that point.
So you moved back home in April. So maybe like a week after all this shakes up, you moved home back to Chicago. Remind me, what suburb are you from?
St. Charles.
St. Charles. Okay. So the fine west suburb of St. Charles.
There you go.
And I'm just curious the role that your teammates played in all this. So your WashU teammates, I think did you go to St. Charles East? Is that correct?
Yep.
Your St. Charles right. East buddies, your friends. I'm sure that the guys that have been around you on the basketball court were a big part of the support network. Just talk about the role that they played in all of this.
They were huge. I, outside of my family, basketball has been, the people that have kept me through this. And that's the power of, our sport and what we're doing here. And not only, my teammates, but also, my coaches. I think Coach Yuckham and then my high school coach, Pat Woods, have been, two of the people that have done the most for me in this period. And, that is, something that says a lot about our relationship we had while I was, on his team in high school, and, now on Yuckham's team here. But, it shows how much, this sport can really bring people together. And, whether I continued to play basketball this year or not, Coach Yuckham was going to do everything in his power to, be there for me. But just talking about my teammates, it was whatever I need, whenever I need it. If I'm up in the middle of the night, I'm FaceTiming people just to waste some time because I couldn't sleep. My mind was elsewhere. I just needed to get something off my chest. I could do that. Jack Nolan and Charlie Jacob were both living in Chicago this summer, so they were taking the train out to my house on their days off of work to come see me, between treatments, and check in on me, just try and do anything they can to raise my spirits. Dave Winley drove up from St. Louis a couple times this summer to come check on me. We got alumni sending videos of their support on days that I was sitting in treatment. Like whatever I needed, my teammates had my back, and that I'll never forget how much they've been there for me and still are there for me. And when I'm having tough days down here now, I can promise you the one thing that I can do to stay busy is respond to text messages, because everyone is always checking in, want to make sure that I'm doing all right. If they know I'm having a tough day.
It's really an incredible perspective. I think Division III athletics tends to just lend itself to more perspective anyway, but then you layer a story like this on top of it, and you really realize the caliber of people that you're around at this level, and the depth of the friendships that you build. And I can't imagine how much support you were getting from that community. In June, early June of 2021 was your first day of chemotherapy. And of all places, it's another Division III school, and it's a UAA rival. So your chemotherapy starts at the University of Chicago. Talk through that phase of all of this. What was that like? I know it wasn't easy. So talk us through kind of the early June moving into chemo phase of this.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't, have been doing it at a place that I hate going to more than University of Chicago. I think, we've had some tough games there. So hurt that that's where I was going to be doing treatment. All jokes aside, the start of chemotherapy was, the beginning of, that journey of going through treatment, but it was the end of the journey of not knowing and not being sure what was going to happen next. We spent a whole month and a half meeting with doctors, setting up the plan, and not knowing how chemo was going to hit me. So, I was glad that a lot of that unknown was going to get pushed to the side. Now, chemotherapy isn't fun either. So, the long days in the hospital, we're sitting for 8-9 hours, getting these drugs kind of infused into my body. The first, 2 treatments, I was going every other Friday for 16 weeks. So 8 treatments over the summer, every other week. And, the first 2 hit me pretty hard. We're about like a 3-4 day period where I was pretty incompetent of doing anything. I was pretty wiped out. Just, nausea was through the roof, just body aching, feels like a pretty bad flu. I had every side effect that you could possibly imagine that you could Google and look up at some point on this. There is even little things where you just can't drink or eat anything cold for a couple of days, or put your hands in the refrigerator under cold water. That has a huge effect. Your hands and feet, struggle with neuropathy, just, having this numbness. The side effects, hit me pretty hard pretty early. And I think it was just a shock to my body. So, the first 2 sessions were really, really tough. And, I looked down the line and I was trying to figure out how I was going to get through 6 more. And, thankfully, my doctors made some adjustments to my medication. I really wasn't tolerating one of the drugs well, so had it pulled from kind of my regimen to make it a little bit more tolerable, right? It's this, fine balance of we're trying to figure out, how to keep your quality of life just as high as possible, and, also get you the treatment that you need. So, there's trade-offs with everything, but, thought that was a good trade-off for me. And, this next 6 treatments after that weren't, easy by any means, but a lot more tolerable, from the sense that I was, not completely miserable. Those first ones, I would wake up and just, hope to go back to sleep, where I didn't want to have to deal with what I was dealing with that day. But after we got rid of one of those drugs, it was a lot easier on the body.
At the end of chemo, so at some point here, it's September, you go back to campus, right? You head back to St. Louis for the last of, or maybe you finish chemo up in Chicago, then move to St. Louis, and you start trying to work out again at that point. And when's the last time? Was April the last time you had worked out in any capacity at that moment in September?
Yeah, pretty much. Once I had that, major surgery in April, it took a while to recover from. I got this big gash in my stomach. It took a while to recover from that. And, at that point I'd, said, well, because I have cancer, I can't play basketball. That's what that means, right? No one's played basketball with cancer before, right? This is just, they're mutually exclusive. We're doing one or we're doing the other. So, I'd seen no reason to work out. My weight I had fluctuated down from, 215 to 165 pounds, and then fluctuated back up with unhealthy weight back into the 200s. It went up and down a little bit. But one day I was meeting with my doctor, and he planted this seed in my head. He was like, well, what do you think about getting back to basketball? And I kind of looked at him and I was like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't think that, 1, that you would support this, and 2, that was even a possibility. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I don't think like you could, compete at, a collegiate level, but I think you could play if like you wanted to a little bit. Like you could, work out and, whatever
Be on the
that,
JV team or something.
Yeah,
So
I don't know what he was thinking. Play intramurals or something. Find, a little like leisurely activity out of it. But he was like, yeah, it would probably be good for you to get back to, some physical activity, right? That can't hurt. So
it was actually
as soon as
it was the doctor's idea. So that's the incredible thing in this, or one of the many incredible things, is that it was your doctor that said, well, what do you think about trying to play basketball again? That must have been
exactly
pretty cool to hear that. Like, hey, that's okay to do. Like, I had no idea I could try to do that. That must have been pretty darn cool.
Yeah, and if he doesn't say that, I don't think I ever really consider it. And so, the trial of trying to get back to practicing was brutal, to say the least. I mean, I had taken about whatever it was, 5 months off at this point. I can't touch my toes when I'm stretching. I can't, do a body squat, a forward lunge. Like, let alone, thinking about loading anything with weights or getting out there and making sharp cuts on the basketball court. It was really brutal at first. My body had, just not been, put through any physical activity, but, B, my immune system was, hit pretty hard by, a lot that I was going through. Some of my body wasn't going to be able to recover quite as well as, it typically would. So, it took a while, but, I just started with small increments, and I was, a little bit afraid of what would happen. Right. I think my biggest fear was, okay, well, this frustration that I'm going to have to go through of knowing like I once could do a lot of these things and maybe we'll never get back to being able to do them. That's what, I was most afraid of, but, I wasn't going to let that be what stopped me from trying. So once I got over that point a little bit, just built on it, getting out there, shooting a little bit. Okay, now let's lightly try driving to the rim and doing some finishes. Coach Yuckham would be happy to know I was working on my stride stops. That's a big thing in our program. But, built on a little by little, and I was working out at my high school. Coach Woods was opening up the gym for me. He let me come in and play pickup with his guys. I was never going to step on the court with our guys before I felt, a little more comfortable and confident. And, I was probably the 7th or 8th best player in my high school with people 4 years younger than me. That's where I was starting out. It was really, really ugly. He'll tell you that he was watching, but, just little by little, build some strength back up, built a little bit of confidence. And, here we are now playing, back on my WashU basketball team.
Well, that's the amazing thing. And just to give people context, when you're staring at this, you can't touch your toes. Let's just try to, get in shape and shoot the basketball again, kind of thing. From where you were, you're a second team all UAA player 2 years ago, the year that got scrapped. You're in the Sweet 16. You're in Naperville. You're about to play North Central. That year, you're a star player, all UAA. The year before, you're all on the all freshman team. Out of high school, when you committed to WashU, that was one of these huge Chicago area recruiting things, because you were recruited at a super high level. Remind everyone, you picked WashU over who? What were the other 2 or 3 schools that were in the conversation there at the end?
Yeah, I was mostly looking at, some other good academic options. Hillsdale College is a D2 out of Michigan. Yep. University of Chicago had looked at a little bit. And St. Cloud State was a school I considered pretty heavily. And then, had, one D1 offer from Presbyterian. Didn't really, ever consider them, that heavily, but they were on the table as well. Those were kind of the ones I was considering most.
Yeah. You had a legitimate Division I offer. You had great Division II offers. You had every Division III chasing you around, the top of Division III. And so you were at this crazy high level, and you're having to just completely start over. When practice started, I can't remember, did practice start about October 1st this season? I think it did. I think it was, or was it, I'm getting my seasons mixed up.
This year? I think we had 15th this year.
The 15th,
at least
October 15th. Were you day one, October 15th, WashU Fieldhouse? Were you at that first practice?
Yeah, I was at that first one. And all off season, right? I was down here starting in mid-September, so I was a little bit behind. Hadn't really played pickup or really worked out with our guys. I've worked out, on my own, obviously, doing shooting workouts with my teammates, but wasn't quite ready to hop in and play contact live with these guys that just seem superior to me physically. And so the last week or two leading up to practice was kind of when I first hopped into some competitive drills that we were doing, pickup wise. And so got about, a week or two of that in. And then, October 15th, I was ready to go, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, I was tricking layups. I was struggling to get up and down the court. Our conditioning was pretty brutal. I was finishing behind our bigs. It was not an easy start, but if I wasn't gonna start on October 15th, like when was I gonna hop in and make that switch? So sometimes you got to fight through the pain a little bit and let yourself struggle in order to get to where you want to be. So yeah, I was there on day one.
And so you've been throughout this whole period of time, you've been going through treatments. I think most of the treatments are happening based out of St. Louis now, but this whole time, it's not like these treatments have stopped. You've been going through all this. How many practices this season, starting October 15th, how many practices have you missed?
Practices where I haven't been there, 0. Practices where
0.
Coach has given me a little bit of leeway or let me sit out a couple drills. There's been 2 or 3 of those, but
you've missed no
missed no
You've missed
practices.
no practice.
Missed.
It's amazing.
No games, thankfully, so far.
You've been at every game this season. You've been at all 9 games. You've been at every practice. You've been battling stage 4 stomach cancer, and you didn't do anything from April through somewhere in early September. Pretty amazing. I mean, that's not even the right word for it. When the game started, so the opener was what, the Millikin game?
Yep.
Millikin game. So tell me about going into the Millikin game. So the doctor says, well, you can't play at a competitive level, but maybe you can shoot baskets at the park or something. And all of a sudden now you're dressed for WashU, one of the best programs in Division III. You're opening against Millikin. What was that like, opening day of the season after all that you had been through?
It was special. It's like we dream up these scenarios, right? Like as a kid, I dreamt up, hitting buzzer beaters or, hitting game-winning shots or playing for, my favorite school, Michigan State. I dreamt up what that would look like, running out on the court, at the Breslin Center or something like that. And, when I sat through cancer treatment, I dreamt of like, okay, what if I were to take the court one more time? I dreamt running out, into the WashU field house with 30 people in the stands or whatever it is. That was my dream. And, I sat in the rafters, before the game, just listening to some music. And I thought about that. And I was like, wow, like this, like was legitimately a dream of something that I never thought I could achieve. And, I am going to go out tonight and actually live this, of something that I, fantasized about that, I never thought was going to be possible. And I'm living this dream tonight. And, that's kind of how I'm trying to live this season. And I know, my teammates to kind of embrace that at all. Like, let's just, enjoy what we're doing. Like, it's not guaranteed. I could wake up tomorrow and I might not play another game this year. Like, I don't know. Like, that is the reality of the situation I'm dealing with. But, if I just enjoy every single day that I'm living out this dream, like that's enough for me to be really content with what I'm doing. And the Millikin game, meant a lot. That, that was the first, day where I really got to see that this is, possible and that I'm doing this for real.
And then just a week or so, or a couple of weeks later, whatever it is that trip we mentioned to Memphis. And so now, as we're all thinking through this, most of us are just watching the WashU Dubuque game because it's 16 versus 18, and we want to know who's better, 16 or 18. And now that we think through your journey from April to that game, and to think that you scored 28 points and you had 11 rebounds. I mean, when the buzzer sounds, what was that feeling like?
Well, first I turned to Nolan and I was like, hey man, I think I outscored you tonight. Like, did you ever think that was going to happen again? we
You
joke
said this
about
to him
it.
on the bench, on the bench.
On the court before we even got off, the buzzer just sounded. I was in his ear about it. I gotta give that guy as much of a hard time as possible. He's the greatest I've ever played with. But we walk off and it felt great. Like, I don't want to ever, be known as just, someone who's, playing basketball with cancer. Like, I'm just a basketball player, right? And, I think I'm capable of, being a really good one, and one that, is going to help my team win, in, whatever facet I need to do. So, that night, had the hot hand and got rolling, and, had some great numbers. But, I think whatever I can do to make our team better, screening, getting guys open, managing us on offense, making good reads, whatever it might be, I'm going to do what I got to do to help our team win. And that night, happened to put the ball in the hoop a little bit. And, that felt good, because I was validating that I can still do this. I hadn't had a big game yet or whatever, but, that just told me everything I need to know, that, I am ready to go. And, this season's in full swing, and, none of this stuff is going to affect what I'm doing on the court. I'm still capable of being me. But, that weekend was pretty bittersweet. We got 2 wins that weekend, and, okay, we're on a bus ride home late Sunday night from Memphis to St. Louis, and Monday morning I'm back in Barnes Jewish Hospital for treatment. And that was, my first kind of serious treatment back of, the chemotherapy I had been on this summer, where I was, it hits you pretty hard. So it was great to have that good weekend. But, going into on Monday for treatment, it was like, who knows what's going to come next and how I'm going to feel, and if, the next game is going to be just as good. But have been able to tough it out and stay out on the court.
That is putting it. That's the understatement of the decade, that you've toughed it out. I don't even know what to say about how you're mentally able to do what you're doing, let alone physically. It's simply amazing. It blows me away. In terms of your treatment and, the battle in front of you. So just give us the short version of what's in front of you on the treatment side. What do you have to do every day or week or month, or what happens next here?
Yeah, it's pretty variable. It ebbs and flows. It's, we try and set a plan, but what my teammates and coaches will tell you is you never really know if the plan is going to stick. I thought I was doing treatment one day. We were playing against Webster, and I showed up and played in that game that night. Instead of doing treatment, they canceled it. You never know what days I'm going to be feeling good, what days I'm going to be feeling bad. So it's, just really taking life week by week. As far as right now, what we're planning on doing, just shifted all my treatment to St. Louis. Had been going back and forth between here and Chicago. Really loved my doctor team up there, and they had some good stuff for me, but figured, if I'm going to be playing basketball, I got to be doing treatment here. So right now I'm on kind of a standard chemotherapy regimen that you would see, where they're putting the drugs through the bloodstream, and I'm doing that every other Monday. And this, hopefully we get about 3 or 4 of these in before we have to shift paths and shift gears. The thing about these treatments is your cancers learn to adapt to what's being thrown at them. So while they're effective for so long, they aren't effective for forever. So going through this for now, hopefully that gets me through mid-January, late January, and my team at Barnes Jewish is looking at a lot of clinical trials that they could potentially throw me on next. So don't know necessarily what will come after that, but that's kind of where we're at right now. As far as like the day-to-day, week-to-week, outside of treatment, there's continuous blood work that needs to be done, making sure your numbers are falling within the right ranges and nothing's coming up as significant or alarming. There's CT scans and ultrasounds, and they're checking your other organs to make sure that they're up to par, and we're not seeing any spread or anything alarming there. So it's, just a constant, not worry, but it's a constant, concern of what else might be going on, and always want to stay on top of things as best as possible. So, you see Dick Vitale on Twitter, he's going through it, and he's, been really public about what he's going through. And I think that's kind of inspired me to kind of talk about what I'm doing a little bit. And, he is talking about how he's doing blood work every day and how great it is that he's still able to announce games through all this. But yeah, it is a lot sometimes. It's constant trips up to get checked on.
Just one more question on my end, and then I'll ask you to provide any final thoughts, anything that we didn't get to that you want to share with everyone. I guess my final question, Justin, and is really just, what advice do you have for other people that are going through a similar battle? Unfortunately, this is an awful disease that impacts so many people, and you've attacked it with such courage. What advice do you have for people that are dealing with this and going through this?
I'll give the same advice as someone gave to me that has made all the difference. Positivity is your number one friend through this. And, you have to eliminate any negativity from your life, because, this diagnosis, this disease is enough negativity to consume and just completely destroy you. And any other outside negativity needs to be completely wiped from what you're doing. So I've eliminated anything that could potentially make me sad, mad, any of the above, from what I'm doing. And I'm strictly focused on doing the things I enjoy and the things that are going to make me happy, in the short term. And just being positive about everything that happens. It's okay to have bad days, and it's okay to, just let some things suck sometimes, because that's the reality of it. But, approaching everything just with this positive mindset has been absolutely huge for me in what I'm trying to do.
That's very helpful to people that are on the front end of this thing, or where you are, or on the back end. It's incredible advice. Is there anything that we didn't get to, Justin? Anything that you wanted to throw out there before we wrap this thing up? I just want to make sure we covered everything that you wanted to.
Yeah, I think we talked about pretty much everything. I mean, the one thing that I kind of keep turning back to is that this thing is mind over matter. And if I don't know if I'm lying to myself or what the deal is between my ears, but I keep telling myself that this thing isn't going to inhibit anything that I'm doing. And I truly believe that if you just tell yourself you're capable of doing something, you really, really are. And this thing on paper, right, I couldn't be more sick, right? That's the diagnosis. But here I am doing everything in my life that I want to do. I'm finishing my degree. I didn't know if I was going to do that. I'm playing basketball. I didn't know if I was going to do that. I didn't think I was going to do that. I had many conversations saying I wasn't going to do that ever again. But, just once I flipped that switch and the seed got planted in my mind that I could do this, there's no way I wasn't going to. And, it's been awesome to be able to go out there and play through it. And, I'm looking for stories of, people who have done this before. And, there's been a lot of baseball players that have came back from it, Anthony Rizzo, Trey Mancini, I think a couple of Red Sox pitchers, they've came back, but, no one's played during treatment or through it. And, I think that's kind of what's special about what I'm doing here. And I think it's unique, and I think it hopefully will show someone else someday that wants to try and play through it, that it is possible.
And to think about, where you've come in that from that day 7.5 months ago to 28 points, 11 rebounds versus Dubuque. And most importantly, tomorrow morning, you graduate from WashU with a degree in accounting and finance, and you've pulled that off in 3.5 years. I mean, pretty amazing to be getting that diploma tomorrow. Like, that's just got to be an amazing feeling.
It's gonna feel good. Yeah, I got family coming in, and we're gonna celebrate that. Because we weren't sure, that this was gonna be done. If it would be done this semester, next semester, a few years down the line, whoever knew what was gonna happen. And we're doing it now. We're doing it on schedule as planned, and that's something to celebrate.
Well, to everyone that's tuned into the QCast here today with Justin Hardy of Washington University in St. Louis, I hope, like me, that you have a whole dose of perspective right now about these conversations we have about Division III games and which team is better and which player is the best. And I think after listening to this today, like me, you'll probably just take a step back and have to think through this whole thing a little bit. Justin, your courage is incredible. I think the impact you'll have on people who are going through this is amazing. I know for sure that people are going to listen to this and they're going to be better off because of it. And so, I look forward to seeing you in person. I'm flying up here from Dallas to St. Louis for the Illinois Wesleyan WashU game. I sure hope to be able to say hi to you at that game. I hope you don't go for 28-11. I seriously don't. I hope you go for like 2-2. I'm just saying, like, I want to meet you and say hello. I really am rooting for the Titans in that game. In all seriousness, I hope you score 40. And you're an amazing young man, and we're all proud of you, everyone in the Division III community, for being part of this community. And I can't thank you enough for joining me today on the QCast. Any final words for those joining us, Justin?
Thanks for letting me share my story. I think it's a good one to put out there, and hopefully people can take a thing or two from it and put it into their lives. But thanks for having me.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Thank you.